Hmm. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Dank, Fart, the pirate poet. Fart is spelled P.H.A.R.T. Fart is an acronym for pretty hot and reasonably talented. I'm here with Freddy Fonseca. He is the author of The Bomb That Blew Up God. There's his name right there. This is a really fabulous collection of poetry that just was recently released, and he is selling copies. And yeah, we're just here today to talk to him about his work as a poet and about this wonderful book. So I guess where a good place to start would be, can you tell us a little bit about where the inspiration kind of came for the title of the book and kind of where that came about?
Yeah, again, it was one day a poem started. The devil wanted to insisted on having the latest, baddest bombs tested, but God wasn't thrilled. That line came up, and and I just kept writing, writing, and writing. And at some point, I considered it more or less finished, and I went to other stuff and everything. And at some point, I showed it to a friend of mine who's kind of my editor. I mean, she has seen a lot of my poetry and sometimes advised, well, this word or that phrase is maybe not so good and so on. And I also showed it to my sister, who was an art lover very much. And they both were ecstatic about it. And I was at that time pretty much had started editing the book, and several new poems have come after that also. And at some point, it was kind of unavoidable that I would use the title of the poem for the book.
Cool. And so then the book itself is it's seven different sections and it goes through different forms of contemplation, kind of from almost like an abstract, then kind of more to concrete and into that flow of kind of life affirmation, kind of so like kind of a full life process from what I was from my reading of it. And so what kind of was the process of that coming into culmination and kind of this piece of this the collection?
So that was not premeditated. So this collection is pretty much a collection of the best stuff that I've read, that I've written all my life until only just a few months ago. But at some point I started seeing that there were certain poems that had a certain character. For instance, the second chapter is all about dance and music and the magic of both. And other chapters are about, could say spiritual development. And so I saw that there was kind of an order in it. And then I started thinking, well, this poem should probably be in the chapter so and so and so. And I gave those chapters names, and that was it. And it turned out to be 7 chapters. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So it's kind of very organic process of just kind of seeing the pieces and kind of feeling into which ones resonated, and it kind of just unfolded into the book that it
Exactly.
is.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I feel very similarly with all the books that I have put together. And it definitely reminds me also how you were talking about the line, how the bomb that blew up God, you just kind of had these lines that came in and it kind of just kept unfolding. Is that how a lot of your writing comes through, or is there other ways that you kind of go into it?
Well, most of the time, maybe a sort of a concept suddenly is in me, and I have no idea what it is yet. But then a line comes, and then there's a certain music, a certain rhythm too, and there is definitely a subject. And I feel at some point it keeps coming back and establishing itself. And then I feel often, okay, so this is probably something that wants to be a poem. Other times, maybe not so. And then I let it go. And then on the next line comes, the next line comes. And actually, with me also, always the poem dictates how it wants to be written. So it dictates, okay, I want this in sort of free verse, or I want it in rhyme, or I want it very rhythmical, I want it very ecstatic, or very quiet. And that's what the poem dictates. Maybe the muse tells the poem to tell it to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that. And I think a lot of it is just whatever the subject is, so it kind of informs itself by whatever you're writing about. Because when you know you're being opened up to that channel of the muse, and so you're in that vibrational state or whatever, so that the poem's coming through and that will replicate whatever or energize essentially with whatever it is that you're
Yeah,
writing.
that's
And I'm
that's
also
very true. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I think I like to think about a lot of different arts and the way that they translate to each other. And there's something about almost like how a painting, like you have the strokes and the next strokes that are going to be coming or whatever the next lines on the painting are informed by the previous lines and the previous layers, and they kind of just
Exactly.
start to come together and they to create the whole picture. And sometimes you're working at the lower levels working on it and you're not quite sure where it's going to come through, but you just keep intuiting and feeling it because you have either a sense or a subject or something that starts to unfold, and then next thing you know the piece starts to come to life, and
Yeah,
there it
yeah.
is.
Pretty much that. That is pretty accurate. I'd like to illustrate it with probably was one of my most favorite poems. Actually, poems to a poet are like his or her children. So, and you love all your kids, right? But there is, of course, differences. So I'd like to start with a poem about trees. And I borrowed a line from John Muir as a dedication at the top. And that says, I never saw a discontented tree. So the title of the poem is The Language of Trees. I asked the trees one summer what they had been thinking of all year. They wouldn't say. But then I heard them wave and whisper of the ages, seasons, years and months and days, and countless hours of abundant happiness. I like the tales they tell me. Autumn makes them talk of leaving all, and yet they stay. And as they drop their leaves, they muse for weeks on April, thrushes, stars and lingering Indian summers, rain and latent loneliness. Their voice is low in winter. Snow and icy winds are on their minds and they withdraw. But in their winter dream, you hear how branches sing and think of dawn, the sun and distant countries, warmth and summer peacefulness. How grand they are each season. Often have I seen them stand like kings. A certain awe surrounds their splendid forms. And so they wait for spring, for flowers, verdant prairies, butterflies in May, and simple loveliness. And then they speak of lovers. Sudden colors spread their message fast. And every year their many stories bloom and brighten noble pages, poems, gorgeous music, heart and mind with endless youthfulness. And so we welcome summer. All day long they stand and think and dream. And all we hear is how they wave again and whisper of the ages, seasons, years and months and days, and countless hours of unending happiness.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Sounds like it'd be great to be a tree.
Thank you.
Hmm. So what was some of your favorite, what are some of the aspects of that particular one that kind of makes it one of your favorites?
Oh, well, that's of course very subjective, but let me
Yeah, well, it's,
say
yeah,
this.
just your
Yeah,
personal
yeah.
preference.
I pretty much walk a lot. Right now, I don't have a car, so I walk to grocery store, walk here and there. And being a fairly small town, there are a lot of trees. Yeah, like in New York City, there are only trees probably in the Central Park, but here are a lot of trees. So wherever I walk, I see trees, and I've always liked them. And at some point, this has been, I think I wrote it at least 30 or 35 years ago or something.
Wow.
It started, the tree started talking to me, so to speak. And there came the first name, line. I asked the trees one summer what they had been thinking of all year. And then it just, and the poem informed me that obviously it was going to be about trees, but also about the seasons, all four of them. And then, everything got woven together with all those aspects of eternity and coming and going on the
Mm,
kind of road itself. I mean, I
totally.
added it over the years, here and there, a word here and there, but the form of it came pretty solidly true. And as you hear, there is no rhyme in it all, but it has, everything has an incredible structure. Each stanza is almost a life of its own. And yeah, it has been my favorite all those years.
Cool. Yeah, it's good. Trees are just such good, powerful, just symbols for so many different things. You know, there's
Right.
so many different traditions. The tree of life and reaching between the ground, the lower world, and like the soil, and the higher world, and the clouds, and then the middle world. Yeah, trees are so beautiful, so powerful too. And that's that's the clay of the poet is the world around them. They
Mhm.
take that and then translate these raw materials. Like I've got this one quote on the back of my wall by Allen Ginsberg, and it says that the role of poetry is the only way to save the world is through the reclaiming of awareness of the world, and that's what poetry does. Looking
Mm,
at these objects or I mean, a tree's obviously not inanimate; it grows and like sways in the wind. But even like this chair that I'm sitting in the wall, like poets, they get into the lifeblood of it, and like I see like the job, what kind of the role of the poet is to bring the awareness to the animation of all life in this reality, and this as the
mm,
clay and the mold for us to put into the psyche of awareness, the livingness of this world.
yeah. So by complete contrast, about the same time that I wrote this, I wrote some of the poems of the second chapter, which is all about music and dance. And I think I'm gonna read one of the wilder ones to you now.
Cool.
I don't know if you've already I've read it already, but now you can hear me read it. Carnival in Rio, row after row of color, costumes, glitter galore, wave after wave of thundering feet and deafening voices, billow on billow of prancing, advancing masses of dancers. We are dancing the samba, the samba, the samba, the samba in Rio, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We shake our shoulders, bottoms and bellies to the beat of the bongos, the bongos, the bongos. Hours and hours of dancing, singing, laughing, and fun. Day after day of cheer, day after day of cheer in the fiery heat of roasting Rio. Night after night of feverish lust and great, fantastic vices. We know no worries whenever we dance in the streets of Rio, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We twist and turn and stamp, and thus we succumb to the rhythm, the rhythm, the rhythm. Beat after beat of raging blood and rising desire. Song after song of attraction and lure of the sexes. Dance after dance of reveling, heaving oceans of bodies. We are dancing the samba, the samba, the samba in Rio, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We gasp and groan like all our ancestors did in the Congo, the Congo, the Congo. Stream after stream of dark, irresistible rhythms. Wave after wave of hot, tremendous African forces. Billow on billow of burning, baking, boiling catharsis. We're back in the Congo, the Congo, the Congo, and not in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We join our fathers and mothers to shake and mate to the beat, deep in the womb of the rhythm, the rhythm, the rhythm.
Mm, yeah, well, that was really good. I really like your the quality of your reading too. It really gets into the poem, and I think allows the poem to be itself within it. I feel like sometimes people with reading poetry feel they get kind of into their own space and not necessarily they kind of they put themselves into the reading of the poem necessarily versus letting the poem itself fill the reader. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And
That's
I really liked also like how you're in Rio de Janeiro, but then through the depths of the rhythms and everything, all of a sudden you get transported all the way back to Africa and the Congo, and like the power of transportation and being in multiple places all at once, and the kind of the power and the magic of the poetry in that space and that poet and yeah, and I feel like you did a really great job of capturing the visceral experience of being in that space and that mix
yeah,
and
that-
feel the sweat and the heat.
Mhm. Mhm.
So with this book just recently came out, when did it actually get
Well,
published?
it's recently printed.
Printed.
The official launch date is actually September 1st. And it has been pushed back a little bit because of the current health situation.
Yeah.
I still don't know when or where I'm going to do my first real book launch reading, because that is, nobody knows.
Yeah.
But so the publisher that I have is kind of a hybrid. So it is publisher, and it gives me the opportunity to be self-published in the sense that I can buy copies from him
Oh, cool.
and sell them at the retail price. So I ordered a bunch of them and started sending them to major newspapers like the New York Times, San Francisco Chronicle, Library Journal, and at the same time selling copies.
Cool. That's very Walt Whitman of you.
Yeah, and I have a presence on Facebook as Cosmopolitan Poet, and my book appears there very often because I like to be creative with how I present myself.
Beautiful. How long have you been writing poetry?
Well, since probably 1969. I wrote a little bit of poetry in a different language before, which is actually my mother tongue, Dutch, but that didn't amount to much. I mean, it was like poems for occasions. But then in 1969, I was in Rome. I lived there for a while. And one day I was walking through one of those beautiful parks there, the Villa Borghese, with a friend of mine, and who had just come from the States and then was going to do some acting over there. So I was kind of showing him the city, and we walked through that park, and there was this statue of Lord Byron, the famous British poet, romantic poet. And there was an inscription on the pedestal of like 6 lines. And so I read those, and it made such an impression on me. It was like, afterwards I can say it is like thunderstruck. I was thunderstruck because the next morning I started writing in a language that is my second language, English. English. And since then I've been writing in this language all the time.
Cool. Um, so Lord Byron obviously was a major there, those lines were a major influence. Do you have any other poets that you feel particularly drawn to that you like to read?
Oh yeah, well, I have read probably since then there are like 20,000 poems in 5 languages. And
Wow.
many of them are my favorites, but most of the poems I've read were in English or American English, whatever you want to say. And I was very much enthused with learning about American poetry. And I can say, without, not in any particular order, I like Poe, I like Frost, I like Rachel Lindsay, Sarah Teasdale, Sandberg, and a lot of those people that lived like in the first half of the 20th century. There was this incredible poetic renaissance at that time, and I've read all of them. And all of them are pretty much, I think, were part of the influences that shaped me over the years.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, so
Shall
this
I
book,
come up with
yeah,
a different one now? Let's see.
sure.
Okay. So this is a very introspective one. It's about your place of birth. And many people travel nowadays and sometimes, settle in different countries. And some people have any kind of homesickness to a certain degree. Some people have it very seriously. For others, it is not that important. But I have here a poem called Birthplace. He who loves his native home, where all his fathers lived and died, he is never far from home. He who hums his native songs, remembered from his mother's lips, he still treasures all her songs. He can hear them word for word, although he left his native land without goodbye, without a word. He who cares to come back home, where all of us remember him, he now feels his heart come home. For here he treads his father's land, where we, his kin, reside. Replete with tears, he greets his dearest land.
Hmm. Beautiful,
Thank you.
beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sense of place is so fascinating, and I feel like this book does like a has a lot of that. Starting with kind of that first journey with the what is the first chapter, the shards of light, and I feel like you do a really good job of kind of within throughout the book. I didn't going through the process of the experience of life and reflecting on it in a good way, and that really embodies the the experience of life. Starting with the shards of light, some of the poems in this opening are kind of abstract, kind of like getting into what is life, and then kind of through that process of kind of as you're growing up, starting to become more identified with what this being a little bit more, and then through the process of that, and then almost moving to then through the ages and kind of watching the body drift and into those new spaces. Yeah, and I feel like you do a really good job of that throughout the whole book, and I feel like that sense of place that you kind of were writing about in that last poem kind of comes through in a lot of way throughout this whole book.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the ones that I liked a lot was The Sun and I. And my favorite lines was the last, I guess, stanza, but where it says, "Science says the earth turns, the sun doesn't move, but of course they're wrong. The sun moves, and so do I." And I just really enjoy that because I feel like poetry, and it's not like unscientific. In fact, I think a lot of poetry is very much in the minutia and in the science of work things, but it's just so like it's such a simple statement, but it's so obvious that we do think of almost the sun as like this stationary thing and the earth is going around the sun, but obviously there's so much more complexities that are going on, and the sun is just one part of a pattern, and like what is the sun um orbiting around. And so it's a really simple poem that unpacks a whole lot. And it's just, I also really enjoy that calling science out with, and it says, of course they're wrong, which I just kind of, it's in a way, but it's also being true. That's like an acknowledging where kind of the ephemeral and the grounded meet. And I think you do it within the within your poems. I think there's a good element of that as well.
Thanks. Yeah, I had fun writing that one.
Yeah. What are some of the your like about writing that? Like, what is some of the experiences that you feel like that is like the joy, the juiciness for you that is writing a poem?
Um, well, I always feel that there's when a poem starts coming out and really becoming something, then there is in the depth of me there is a sense of this poem really has something to say and something that is beyond me. It's not, of course, obviously I write it with my hand or my typewriter, but it is something that surfaces and wants to be communicated in a certain way, and it demands from me to do it well, obviously. And that in itself, I would not like to the word obey, but following the thread of the whole experience and merging with it, and so that you get the exact, as much as possible, exact right phrase, the right word, the right rhythm, and the right construction. That is something that gives me immense joy and satisfaction.
Yeah, as a poet, I very feel aligned with that. You just all of a sudden like that line just comes, and all of a sudden everything just starts unfolding. It's like you're saying that following that thread, like it's like all of a sudden like a shirt or something, you get a little thread that comes undone. All of a sudden you start pulling on it, and next thing you know, you got the whole thing right there, and it's just that raw. And that's how like for me as a poet, and it sounds like you too, like that you're on to a something that is there. And and like for like the practicing, all of the other practicing is so that when you feel that moment, so that you can then integrate all of the pieces and your tools to really craft it into its highest form. But when you find those moments and those crystals that then crack open.
Yeah, and that happens whether it is a very serious poem or a very light, joyful poem or something grave or something, whatever it is. It is just following that pattern, so to speak, that is obviously it's given to the poet, it's given to me. Because sometimes after I've written a poem, and things, where the hell did this come from? I wasn't thinking of it. I actually very rarely I've written to a particular subject. The only time, or one of the few times that I can remember that I did that, bookstore for many, many years. And at some point I felt like I wanted to honor the owners of the store, to write something about books. That was just a thought that came up. And indeed, it was a book, a poem about books. The title is called Books. And let me read that to you. Let's see.
Cool.
Let's see where it is. It's one of my longer poems, but certainly not excessively long. Okay. Books. Sometimes when I think of the vast wisdom ever contained in books, countless scriptures of all creeds, scrolls in indecipherable languages, tomes of science, the great library of Alexandria destroyed by fire centuries ago, priceless knowledge gone, thousands of books buried by the Third Reich, books still held secret at the Vatican, hieroglyphs in Egypt, and whatever Atlantis may have contributed to the written word, books simply lost and never found. Others molded, fallen apart, discarded, and all the many books I'll never be able to read in a lifetime, even if I live 1,000 years. And when I think of all these while browsing at garage sales, used bookstores, oh, the good feel of an old book and the sense of care for books you surmise some previous owner had. To see his or her name written on the title page, sometimes with a date of purchase or gift. Yes, then I tend to hold the book in my hands a little long sometimes, deliberating whether I'll buy, and I read again what's on the flap, scan a few more pages, look for a keen phrase here and there, ponder on the title, the design, the author's name, weighing it all in my hand. And page after page of long forgotten lore, adventure, and myth slowly takes shape, mingling with my own memory of myths in the back of my mind, passing through my skin, stealing into my bones, my heart, holding me spellbound for a lifetime, it seems. And somehow, beneath my feet, the deeper caves and mysteries of the earth open wide, where I can glimpse that which I cannot name but know that it exists. And I'm feeling strangely rooted and connected to all cultures, beliefs, poetry, wars, romance, history, peace, and then I may take the book home. But as I'm standing here, lost in time for a while, some power is reclaiming everything I thought was lost to man one time. And I see the great communicator of it all in all these many chapters, paragraphs, sentences, mm, words, working their way with a purpose, meaning, and conviction across so many ages. And suddenly it seems that everything is here now and really never went away at all, as long as books have ever existed and the readers found them. And as I close the book, walking out to get some fresh air, there's all the magic in the air as of old still. And I can live with that and be an open book to all.
Mm. I feel that exact same way about books. Books were my first love in life, and they are one of my most favorite things. That's how I've kind of stumbled into being a poet first, just through my love of reading. Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, I really loved that piece. It was really great, and yeah, all the deep connections. And I've always thought about the Library of Alexandria and the Vatican Library and like all that stuff.
Yeah,
Just so much,
so
just
much knowledge there and
yeah.
history. And it's gone, or it can be reached, it can be found.
Yep. Yep, one I would hope to see someday in my lifetime a mass liberation of books. I've written some poems that were actually specifically about the liberation of literature and books.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, so important. And you should everybody out there, you should check out his book, The Bomb That God Blew Up by Freddy
No, that blew up
Fonseca.
God. The bomb that blew up God.
The bomb that, yeah, what did I say? Did I say I don't know. The
God
bomb
blew
that
up.
blew up God.
Yeah. Put it in your browser and then it will come up.
Cool. And do you have a website and stuff?
Yeah, it's called fonseca-poems.org.
Cool. I'll put that all down in the description for all of you people that are watching this and checking it out, so you can easily click on the link and you can go check out all of his work and find him on Facebook. I'll put up links all up in there. And
Great.
yeah, just be sure to follow Freddie. Be sure to check out his book, his really amazing, juicy poetry. Really, really, really enjoying this book. So if you're all out there and you need some good poetry in your life, which you do, whether you know it or not, this is a great book, The Bomb That Blew Up God. Do you wanna kind of lead us out with maybe the title poem?
Sure, yeah, let's do that. Wait a second. Okay, as the bomb that blew up God, a fable dash the true history of the Big Bang. Okay, the devil insisted on having the latest, baddest bombs tested, but God wasn't thrilled. So Satan flew over to heaven, smirking and hissing. You know that my army is much, much larger than yours, and you are opposing me? God glared and said, hell yes, those bombs are the worst, and you know it. So, Satan replied, and whose fault is that? You created Adam and Eve. God sighed, you talk back too much, go back to hell. God retired, and angels sang him to sleep. Livid, the devil went down to hell, but soon concocted a masterly, truly hellish plan. He went over to see the smartest, scariest scientist around and said, make me a bomb that will blow up Almighty God. Even though being roundly shocked, they went to work at once. They had always been secretly smitten with Satan's shenanigans anyway. After splitting some newly discovered particles, they called the devil, we did it. Come on over, it's all yours. Satan didn't wait long. Overjoyed, he picked up 10 bombs just in case, dashed in a flash to heaven, snuck past the angels into God's bedroom, and put a bomb smack under his head. God was taking a nap. Satan snickered, sweet dreams. And boom, blow up God. And everything blew up. Creation, heaven, man, the universe, all. The only realm remaining was all hell. Satan lit up, roaring with laughter, and cried, now I can finally play with bombs as long as I please and bomb the hell out of hell. And so he did. He dropped bomb after bomb on hell, blowing up megazillions of souls. At last, after killing everyone, he sat down on one last functional bomb in hell and boomed, now I'll create, for I am God. And that did it. The bomb blew up him. From that time on, nothing, absolutely nothing remained. But God woke up and said, do you see now what I mean? And started creation one more time. But Satan had an even more devilish plan. God knew and never slept again.
Yeah, love that. Hmm. Thank you so much for sitting down here with me, Freddie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, everybody, be sure to get yourself a copy of The Bomb That Blew Up God. All the details will be down in the description. Be sure to support Freddie, this amazing poet. All right, I'm Dank F.A.R.T, the pirate poet. F.A.R.T is spelled P.H.A.R.T is an acronym for Pretty Hot and Reasonably Talented. Thank you all so much for being here with me on this beautiful journey. Blessings.